Good afternoon. My name is Frank Wu, and I have the honor of serving as the president here at Queens College, proudly part of the City University of New York. Welcome to our beautiful campus and to LaFrac Concert Hall for the Queens College Kupferberg Center for the Arts, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration. We are proud to continue this annual tradition here in the World's Borough, honoring the life and the living legacy of Dr. King. At this time, I ask that you please rise for the playing of Lift Every Voice and Sing, which will be performed by Terrence Pogue, Filet Brown, and pianist Russell Paul. Lyrics to what is also known as the Black National Anthem can be accessed by looking at the QR code printed in your program.
Every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound aloud as a rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Stony the road we trod, into the chastening rod, built in the seas wind born, born at night, with the steady beat of not a weary feet, to the praise for which our fathers
Sing a song. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of a bright star is cast. God of all wearies, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far. from the places, our God, where we met thee. Blessed our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, where we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. Amen.
What an inspiring rendition of the Black National Anthem, and so many thanks to our American Sign Language interpreters as well. Another big round of applause, please. I'd like to begin this afternoon's ceremony by welcoming some of the special guests whom we have in attendance with us. We'll start with the Vice Chair of the City University New York Board of Trustees, Sandra Wilkin. Thank you so much, Sandra. I should say Trustee Wilkin. We're also joined by a number of others. New York State Assemblywoman representing Southeast Queens, Alicia Heineman. Rashawn Davis, Executive Director of the Andrew Goodman Foundation. Regina Bain of the Louis Armstrong House Museum. She's the executive director. If you have not checked out the new Performing Arts Center, $26.5 million project over in Corona, take a look at it. It is a spectacular museum that falls under the administration of Queens College. We also have with us today from Benjamin Cardozo High School, the all-time winningest basketball coach in PSAL history, Ron Niclero. Thank you so much for joining. From New York Edge, CEO Rachel Gosdick and Director of College Readiness, Diana Asabi. Thank you. Representing Assembly Member Khalil Anderson, a proud Queens College alum, we have William Bow. My colleague, the president of Queensborough Community College, Christine Mangino. And the student leader who sits on the CUNY Board of Trustees, the president of the University Student Senate, Salamatu Dumbaya. Thank you for being in the house with us. Oh, and Assemblymember Jeffrey Aubrey is in the house. A big round of applause for the Assemblymember. Thank you for being here with us. And I'm finding a few more names. Oh. And Senator John Liu, who is a late addition. The reason I didn't mention him is he's going to be on stage in just a moment, so we'll give a more effusive introduction of him in one moment. I want to gratefully acknowledge the exemplary work of the Planning Committee for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. program. Their hard work over the course of the past year has made this wonderful event possible. That committee is led by the Dean of the Arts and Humanities faculty, Simone Yearwood, a three-time alum of Queens College, and Chelsea Lavington, Director of Admissions. You can see all the names of the committee members displayed on the slide above me, so thank you so much for putting together this wonderful program. I want to thank also all of the faculty, staff, and students, as well as alumni who are involved in today's admissions open house. We appreciate your efforts, and we're excited to have you here. We want to welcome the diversity, the talented people of this borough so that they can continue their educations, earn the credentials, and propel themselves and their families upward in pursuit of the American dream. There may be some prospective students in the audience today, and you are especially welcome. This is what our campus is all about. We look forward to seeing you back next school year. To all the department chairs, members of the cabinet, student leaders, college staff, and the community at large, many, many thanks. We have a spectacular lineup for you today, featuring remarks from leading government officials, student leaders, and a new mini-documentary video honoring the life and legacy of civil rights heroes James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner in recognition of the 60th anniversary of their tragic deaths. A keynote address from Jennifer Jones, Austin's CEO and Executive Director of the Federation of Protestant Welfare, and a musical performance from the treble chorus. Today, of course, we honor the legacy of a man, a leader, a giant, whose impact has been felt by generations and generations yet to come in this great nation of ours. And what he did will live on as long as our nation does. Throughout his life, Dr. King promoted equality, freedom, and justice for all through principles, through self-sacrifice, through ideals, and he himself made that ultimate sacrifice. Here at Queens College, we are constantly striving to stay true to Dr. King's vision of a just society. We felt a special connection to him since he first spoke on our campus way back in 1965. Almost 60 years later, so much has changed in our society for the better, but his words remain as true as ever. There is work yet to be done, and Dr. King's example leads the way. It inspires the efforts of so many countless others, because despite all that we have achieved, the nation still faces, in this moment of division, profound challenges and concerns. We are here not only to remember the life of Dr. King, but to remind us all together of what he fought so hard for as we continue that project. As Dr. King said in nearby Colden Auditorium, right here on our campus, quote, "I still have faith in the future. However dark the night, however dreary the day, I believe that we shall overcome." It is my pleasure now to introduce New York State Senator John Liu, who represents Queens College up in Albany, a longtime friend of the City University of New York, of Queens College, indeed, sometime faculty member here, a personal friend of mine, and I know a friend of yours. John has been a tireless fighter and advocate for public higher education. He'll say a few words. Thank you so much, Senator.
And effusive that was. Thanks, Frank. Great to see everybody here on the eve of a national holiday, the only national holiday that is in honor of one person. It's the only national holiday in the United States of America in honor of one person. And of course, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. represents so much more, an entire movement, civil rights, something that continues to be a strong legacy and more than ever needed than ever before, right now, in this time that we're living in, both here in this nation and all around the world. The incredible inspiration that he brought, the inequity that he exposed, and the truths that he told that nobody else would say. That's just part of the legacy that he always reminds us of, and I always take every opportunity to commemorate his life and continue to remind that all of us that we still have a lot of work to do. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is clearly, he's a civil rights leader, and there are many African American organizations that are having events, as are many others. But you know, I can't claim to be African American. I'm Asian. I've been Asian my whole life. But I benefited from his work. I stand on the shoulders of Reverend King, because if not for his work, I most likely would not have been elected to state senate. I never imagined growing up here I could ever run for office, or even anyone like me could run for office. In fact, I may not have even wound up in the United States of America, because the civil rights movement helped pave the way for immigration and people from all over the world to come to the United States to become American. And so it's a very long and deep legacy that I personally have benefited from. And, it reminds us all that we each have a role to play. And so as you listen to the speeches today and remind yourselves of Dr. King's legacy, always try to instill in yourselves the responsibility that each and every one of us has to create more fairness and equity in our society here in Queens and across America. I want to take a special moment to congratulate Jennifer Jones Austin, because she's being honored today. In return for being honored, you have to give a keynote speech, Jennifer. But she wears so many hats and has done so much for the people of New York. So thank you, Jennifer, for everything you've done. And please. I see our senior senator and majority leader is here. He's got a busy schedule, so I got to get off the stage really quickly. But I do have to say one more thing about another giant right here in our community and right here with us today. He's a giant, number one, because he is literally a giant. I mean, he's like 7 feet tall. And secondly, because he's been a friend and mentor to me and an entire generation of activists and legislators and elected officials. Jeff, I got to say, you're older than me by a generation, right? But Assemblyman Jeff Aubrey, he has... I was at another event that he was being honored at yesterday. I didn't have a chance to speak. I'm going to be at another 100 events that he's going to be honored at this year into next year, because after decades of service, he has decided to retire from the New York State Assembly, and he's just done so much. So thank you, Jeff, for everything you have done for me personally, as well as for the entire city and state of New York. Thank you. Jeff Aubrey. And with that, the man who goes around all over I don't think I have the privilege of introducing him, but I'm going to say that he's all over the country. He's the freaking majority leader of the United States Senate. And he never misses a single event right here in New York City, in Queens, or anywhere else. So I think President Wu is going to introduce our majority leader. Yeah, I was going to just grab that, but, no. Frank and I go a long way back. It's your privilege. This is your house. I'm not going to step on that. But always a privilege to see Senator Chuck Schumer.
All right, thank you so much, Senator Liu. And indeed, I've looked up to John for decades. So we have the great pleasure to be joined by someone who made room in his busy schedule. He always does for Queens College, no stranger to our campus. The United States Senate Majority Leader, the senior senator for the state of New York, a tireless fighter for all of us, Chuck Schumer. Let's have a warm welcome. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And let's return those applause. Thank you, thank you. For President Wu, who does such a great job at one of the best universities of higher learning, not just in Queens, not just in New York, but in all of America. Thank you, Dr. Wu. And I have a little story to tell. It's apropos about your great guest speaker, Jennifer Jones Austin, the CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. So in 1980, I decided to run for Congress. And my district was in Brooklyn then. I represented part of Queens, as you know, a little later. And the northern third of the district was African American. The bottom 2/3 largely white. There was even more segregation then in housing than there is today. And the guy running against me was a right-wing Democrat. It was the primary. But he ran the most racist, nasty campaign against me. They even, in those days, it was even worse than it is today. They'd put pictures on the polls of me arm in arm with 2 black people, like that was supposed to be bad. So the leading ministers of Brooklyn including the legendary Dr. William Bill Jones, who I knew from Bethany Baptist Church, and Gardner Taylor, one of the great preachers in all of America from Concord Baptist, and others came to me. And they said, you know, you have been so strong for our community. We can't let this bigotry take hold. And they mobilized that northern third of the district. And folks, I kicked butt and I became a congressman at age 29 because of Dr. Bill Jones, Jennifer's father. So that's appropriate here on Dr. King Day. So let me speak about him. First, he was one of the most preeminent thinkers, change agents, leaders, not just in our nation's history, but in the world's history. You know, there are a few people like Gandhi and Nelson Mandela who stand out to people of the whole world, and Dr. King was one of those, and whose words and deeds accomplished nothing less than the elevation of the human race. Think about this. It's no coincidence that MLK Day is the only holiday on our calendar, the only one, dedicated to a single person, a single American. We have Mother's Day for all the mothers, and Father's Day for all the fathers, and July 4th for our founders, and Veterans Day for the veterans, but only one holiday for one man. And that is fitting and appropriate, because Dr. King was singular, exceptional, unique. As a young congressman in the 1980s, after Bill Jones helped get me there, I worked hard to pass legislation making MLK a federal holiday. It was one of the things I wanted to get done. And I still remember the nasty bigotry from Congress members about trying to do that. But we fought it, we overcame it, and now we have federal recognition of the legacy that Dr. King left behind, that all of America celebrates in a holiday every year. And I like to say this, Dr. King hoisted a giant mirror on his broad and strong shoulders. And with his eloquence, with his brilliance, with his faith, he forced America to look into that mirror. And when America did, it didn't like what it saw, and that began our long, slow march towards equality, which we're still trotting on today. Now, we are still marching and working together with my friend, and you'll pardon me, Queens College, my fellow Brooklynite, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, the first African-American leader. We are working hard to accomplish some really good things, following in Dr. King's footsteps as we fight for equality and social justice. We stopped MAGA Republicans from shutting down the government, which would have devastated families and local economies across New York. We protected vital priorities like housing programs, veterans benefits, health care, nutrition, and more. And we're working very hard right now to make sure those right-wing extremists don't shut down the government again. We've gotten some good things done. Prescription drugs. For the first time, we beat pharma, the big pharmaceutical industry. And so now insulin for senior citizens is only $35 a month instead of it being hundreds of dollars a month. We're working to get that for everybody. For the first time, we passed legislatively and allowed Medicare to negotiate with the big drug companies, with pharma. So the 10 of the very most popular drugs will have their price plummet starting in a few months. And we put a cap on what anyone has to pay for prescription drugs. You know, it would pain me. Moms would come to me and say, or dads, and say, my son or daughter has cancer. There's a drug that can cure them, Senator, but it's $800 a month. It's not paid for by my health insurance. What am I going to do? And it pained me to watch them and hear them and feel their pain. Well, now, Starting this year, we have a $3,000 cap. Next year, $2,000. No one will pay for all their total cost of all drugs more than $2,000. That mom will be able to afford the cancer drugs for her kids, and millions of Americans will benefit from that solution. And one other thing we're fighting for, Queens College, it's my passion to get the burden of student debt off your shoulders. And step by step, we're making progress. A good number of people have had all their loans forgiven. Many others have gotten those loans reduced, and we won't stop until student debt is gone. G-O-N-E. And one other thing, in Dr. King's memory, he guides us to this day. Day by day, he guides me. I take out his poem, his letter from a Birmingham jail, and read it every so often because it's so inspirational. Because, by the way, he was not only one of the most brilliant thinkers, he was one of the greatest writers. He could have been a great author had he done something else in America. And doing that, I have worked so hard to bring diversity to our federal courts. We have confirmed 160 progressive judges, a record number of black judges, over 50 I have been able to do, 30 black women judges, 100 judges of color. Most of these judges are no longer corporate lawyers or or prosecutors, but they're people who are public defenders and civil rights lawyers and immigration lawyers and people like that. And at the top of the list is Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, first black woman to be on the Supreme Court. But don't forget this, also the first public defender to be on the Supreme Court. So, my brothers and sisters, this is what we can accomplish if we fight unapologetically for our values. As Dr. King would remind us, we've accomplished some things, but our work is not done. Far, far from it. We must continue to march for economic justice and better working rights for all people, better wages, stronger benefits, better working conditions. Economic justice was the great cause Dr. King devoted himself to at the end of his life. His very last speech was to the striking sanitation workers of Memphis, Tennessee. I'm proud that in the American Rescue Plan, we secured pension reform for millions of working families who would have lost their pensions because some big shot invested it in the wrong place. And last year we saw when we protect the right to organize, workers win, unions win, the middle class wins, America wins. So, folks, in conclusion, our work remains incomplete. With all Dr. King accomplished in his short life, the roots of discrimination and bias and hate and violence that he faced still exist today. In these divisive times, I often draw my inspiration from Dr. King's final Sunday sermon, where he said, "We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends in the direction of justice." It takes action from all of us to bend that arc. It takes action to stamp out injustice and inequality wherever and whenever we see it. We must take the example of Dr. King, who found his strength in Scripture. I know the words of the prophet Amos rang every day in his ears. But let justice run down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. My brothers and sisters, you cannot stop justice any more than you can stop a mighty stream from flowing. And if we can truly succeed in making our society truly just and equal, bigotry and equality is gone, then one day, MLK Day will no longer be a day of solemnity and speeches. It will be a day we celebrate with parties and parades and fireworks for the victory we achieved over injustice in America. Until that day, that longed-for day that will happen sometime, I believe, in the future, may the memory of Dr. King continue to flow through our hearts, our minds, our action. May God bless this great Queens College. May God bless our college president, Jennifer Jones Austin, and all of you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
The U.S. Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. Give it up for the senior senator, Chuck Schumer. Just like all of us, like our homes, like our communities, Brooklyn and Queens sit side by side and we're bound together. So it was so special that Senator Schumer would come by Queens College. He made room in his schedule, and I know that I will remember that, that of all the events that he could go to as a national leader, as an international leader, the stage that he strides on, that he chose to come here, we are humbled. Please, let's welcome a future office holder who is the vice president of the Student Association. I hope he's ready to speak. Brandon Adams. He's someone who I know will be running for office someday soon, and it's so important for us to hear the student voice on an occasion such as this. Please.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all. My name is Brandon Adams. I'm the current vice president of the Student Association, as you just heard from President Wu. So first and foremost, I want to express how much respect and admiration that I have for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his incredible contributions to the civil rights movement. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak about him and the immense impact that he has had on our society today. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a brilliant outlook on life. He was an intelligent and educated man with Christian morals and values. And he advocated for everyone regardless of their beliefs or race. He advocated for me, for you, and everybody here to be able to stand here together in this country, in this state, and in this college. It is a fact by the evidence before us that the values which Martin Luther King Jr. held so close to his heart that kept him strong were values based on goodness, values such as courage, justice, compassion, dignity, and truth. Here at Queens College, we can't help but recognize the effect that Martin Luther King has had on our campus. It is an undeniable truth that many of us wouldn't be able to be here together were it not for his courage, bravery, and perseverance during the civil rights movement. Dr. King was a man who not only valued equality, but education, and we recognize that at this institution today. We can all agree that education is important, but standing here today in admiration for a man such as Martin Luther King Jr., I can't help but emphasize the importance of an education once more after observing a life so amazing such as his. I'm not able to count the number of profound things spoken by Dr. King, but one of those profound things that Dr. King said resonates with me is from an article he wrote in 1947 at Morehouse College. In an article titled "The Purpose of Education," written by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., published at Morehouse College in 1947, he stated, "If we're not careful, our colleges will produce a group of closed-minded, unscientific, illogical propagandists consumed with immoral acts. Be careful, brethren. Be careful, teachers." Thank you for having me. God bless you all.
He'll be running for office soon. All right. Thank you so very much. Now, I ask you, please, to direct your attention to the screen for the premiere of Queens College's 4th installment of a series of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. videos. It began 3 years ago with a video that was conceived by Vice President for Communications and Marketing and my senior advisor, Jay Hershenson, an alum of Queens College, who, as he jokes, has been with the CUNY system since 1847. He prepared a video that celebrated the iconic role of none other than Queens College in the historic civil rights movement, a struggle for black equality that has benefited everyone. That was followed by an in-depth exploration of Dr. King's historic visit to Queens College. Then last year, we learned the story behind the 1964 Democratic Convention in Atlantic City. And this year, we premiere a video entitled Heroes in Harm's Way, Dr. King and Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner. This focuses on the 60th anniversary of the murders of James Cheney, Andrew Goodman, and Stephen Schwerner. It's a solemn video, a moving one. It's created by Jay Hershenson and his talented team with the Office of Communications and Marketing. Will be distributed on YouTube and throughout social media. I know you'll be moved. Let's take a look at the screen.
It was a warm summer day in Neshoba County, Mississippi in June 1964. 3 college students arrived to investigate a church fire bombing. It was about to become red hot. James Cheney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner were recruited along with hundreds of black and white volunteers to register voters, develop schools, and secure better health care in Mississippi. The project was known as Freedom Summer. Andrew Goodman was born on the Upper East Side of Manhattan to Jewish parents Robert and Carolyn Goodman. The Goodman family was heavily involved in socially progressive activism. It was a path Andrew followed when he attended Queens College. He joined the Congress of Racial Equality, otherwise known as CORE, during his junior year.
While I was in my first year at Queens, Barbara Jones put an article in the Phoenix looking for volunteers to go to Mississippi. I was intrigued by the idea of doing that, started to attend meetings. Andy Goodman and I were the guys who were the most consistent in going to the different meetings, continuing to learn about the project, and continuing to say we were ready to go.
African-American James Cheney was of the Catholic faith. Born in Meridian, Mississippi, the eldest son of Fannie and Ben Cheney. As a teenager, James took a strong interest in the civil rights movement, often talking with his mother about getting involved. Later on, he organized voter education classes, helping CORE members with introductions to local church leaders and escorting them around Mississippi counties.
He and my moms would talk a lot, and he would share what he was interested in doing. She never forbade him, but she would always end their conversation with, "Boy, you know you can get killed by what you're doing." And he would chuckle and laugh and say, "Yeah, I know.
Affectionately known as Mickey, Michael Schwerner was born to Jewish parents Ann and Nathan in Pelham, New York. His brother Stephen Schwerner was director of counseling at Queens College and chaired the academic senate. Mickey Schwerner studied sociology at Cornell University and later began graduate studies at the School of Social Work at Columbia University. In the early 1960s, he led a local CORE group in downtown Manhattan.
All 4 of us, my wife and I, and Mickey and Rita, joined a chapter of CORE called Downtown CORE. We were all involved in demonstrations in the civil rights movement. He was much braver than I was, and he would lie down in front of bulldozers.
Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner went to a CORE training session in Ohio in 1964. Hundreds of CORE members were educated on how to navigate the racism they would encounter in Mississippi during Freedom Summer. One of the Freedom Schools within a black church in Neshoba County, organized by Mickey Schwerner, was burned down. The 3 activists left for Mississippi on June 20th to investigate. On June 21st, just one day after arriving, the 3 students were jailed, released, then kidnapped, and brutally murdered by local Ku Klux Klan members. An extensive search was initiated. After 44 days, their bodies were found.
The magnitude and the intensity and the quality of the grief
on Carolyn and Robert Goodman's face when I went in to see them is something I will never forget. In the course of looking for the three boys, they had come across 4 or 5 other bodies, young black boys. I said to Dr. King, the Klan has no soul. How much quantity and quality of hate must it take for you to just direct your anger at 3 boys?
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King aided in the quest to bring the murderers to justice, speaking out on multiple occasions and consoling the bereaved families.
I'm at home with my mother and father. The doorbell rings, and I open the door, and there's Dr. King. We sat around the kitchen table and talked for an hour and a half. He was very gracious.
He did everything he could. It was important these murders be kept in public view so that people would know how folks were treated in Mississippi and as a generalization through a lot of the rest of the South.
Dr. King visited Queens College's Colden Auditorium on May 13, 1965 for the inaugural President John F. Kennedy lecture series.
I certainly stand here under the inspiration of the fact that it was Queens College that gave to America, and indeed to the world, Andy Goodman, whose creative witness will certainly live for generations yet unborn. He, along with others, paid the supreme price for this struggle, and I'm sure that we will see in many ways that his death was not in vain.
It was a long, arduous struggle to bring those responsible to justice. 41 years later, one perpetrator of the murder, Edgar Ray Killen, was sentenced to 60 years for manslaughter. He died in prison. The murders of one African-American male and 2 white men shined a glaring spotlight on the horrors of long-standing racism and helped usher in the federal 1964 Civil Rights Act. This historic legislation prohibited discrimination in public places, provided for the integration of schools and other public facilities, and made employment discrimination illegal. The Andrew Goodman Foundation was created in 1966 to carry on the purpose and spirit of Andrew's life. The foundation organized the Vote Everywhere campaign, a national nonpartisan civic engagement movement of student leaders and university partners. The program provides extensive training and a peer network to support Andrew Goodman ambassadors. They work to register voters, bring down voting barriers, and tackle social justice issues on their respective campuses.
The mission of the foundation is making young voices and votes a powerful force in democracy. So we educate our students, organize them to get out the vote, and if they find, we usually do, impediments to voting, they advocate to change it. And in the rare instances where the Board of Elections are just refusing and trying to bully students, we'll sue them.
At Queens College, students with an exemplary record of community service are selected to serve. Emmanuel Avila coordinates the program.
The experience allows a student to go out there and inform the campus community and the community at large about registering to vote and why voting is important. It also speaks about civic engagement and service learning, giving the opportunity to enhance the motto of the institution, which is we learn so that we may serve. The information they provide to the campus community and the community at large is pivotal to what we need to help enhance leadership in society overall.
Hearing about the legacy of Andrew Goodman and knowing that I had an opportunity to be a part of something like that, that was the main motivator, because I knew that I could have an impact in a real way. Making sure that we use our voice for those that don't feel like they have a voice, or to inspire them to stand in their own power and use their voice.
our institutions mean a lot to me. Our democracy means a lot to me. And as we've seen, those institutions aren't as strong as they used to be. And so we need to realize that the work that Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, Dr. King, and all of the amazing civil rights leaders that existed, the work is unfinished. We have progress to make.
With voting, you definitely can make an impact. There's still ongoing voter discrimination. There are a lot of communities that may not have access to polling sites or may not know the correct information of voting. I want to make sure that, everyone is aware of their right to vote.
Voting is a right that I think young people in our generation don't unfortunately exercise. Andrew Goodman sacrificed so we could have the rights that we have.
June 21st, 2024 marks 60 years since the tragic murders and Freedom Summer. What lessons can we learn going forward?
The best way after 60 years to honor the legacy of Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, you honor them with the power of love, not the power of violence. You honor them with a commitment to the pursuit of excellence.
My brother said, I want to do something about it. And we're seeing an uptick in 18 to 29-year-olds' interest in public policy that impacts them. They want to have an impact. And in order to have an impact, you got to vote. Democracy is not guaranteed, and we got to work over the long haul.
It really comes down to ensuring that we're not just doing the work that is necessary in the moment, but the work that is sustainable and will last a lifetime. And to do some important, meaningful, and impactful work.
When I think about everything that has been done for me to be in this seat today, I can't sit still. That's why I'm hoping that my generation is galvanized to make something happen in a real way, in a meaningful way. We face ourselves and we say, okay, we know we're hurting, we know we're in pain. What are we going to do about it? When are we going to make the change?
The bells of the Cheney-Goodman-Schwerner Clock Tower of Queens College's Benjamin S. Rosenthal Library ring every hour in honor of the fallen heroes. The clock tower was dedicated in 1989, and the library hosts a civil rights archives. In 2014, President Barack Obama presented the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously to James Cheney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner.
On June 21st, 1964, three young men, two white and one black, set out to learn more about the burning of a church in Neshoba County, Mississippi. James Earl Cheney, 21 years old. Andrew Goodman, 20 years old. Michael Henry Schwerner, 24 years old. Young men. And in that Freedom Summer, these three Americans refused to sit on the sidelines. Their brutal murder by a gang of Ku Klux Klan members shook the conscience of our nation. It took 44 days to find their bodies, 41 years to bring the lead perpetrator to justice. And while they're often remembered for how they died, we honor them today for how they lived, with the idealism and the courage of youth. James, Andrew, and Michael could not have known the impact they would have on the civil rights movement or on future generations. And here today, inspired by their sacrifice, we continue to fight for the ideals of equality and justice for which they gave their lives.
My mother had passed on, and my father had passed on. And we didn't know any African Americans that had met the president, except for Martin Luther King. And it being President Obama was like a double layer of richness because he was a person of color. And to receive that honor from him would, I think it was just, it was like family. It was like family. And, um, and when we brought the medals home, we set the medals in the chair that my mother sat in. And we left them there for her.
A moment of silence for Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner. Thank you. That video was such a powerful statement, and to have the Reverend Julia Moss Cheney speaking at the end in such a heartfelt manner reminds us that for all our talk on occasions such as this about ideals and principles that we proclaim, that we hold dear, that we hope to share, that there are those who sacrificed in such a tangible, physical, ultimate manner to attain not abstraction, but real, meaningful change in the world. On June 18th of this year, Ralph Carhart of the Drama Theater and Dance Department here at Queens College will debut a theatrical play honoring the lives of civil rights workers called The Invaders. It will focus on the story of the Mississippi Summer Project of 1964. It will take us from right here at Queens College to the dark, hidden back roads, the dusty roads of Mississippi, where the brutality occurred even as idealism was advanced. Queens College student Andrew Goodman, in this play that we will show right on campus, volunteers to be a part of that Freedom Summer, overseen by some of the storied names that we now know from what is historical. Those names that had, at that time, no fame attached to them, but a mission to register African American voters, no different than their white neighbors and co-workers, but black voters in a place that had unconstitutionally for generations robbed them of their voice, their representation, their rights as U.S. citizens. More details will come in the following weeks about this program again on June 18th, 2024. At this time, I'd like to call to the stage MLK Committee co-chairs Simone Yearwood and Chelsea Lavington, along with our keynote speaker, the Honorable Jennifer Jones Austin. We are so fortunate to have with us today Jennifer Jones Austin, and that's really why Senator Schumer came, to honor her, a distinguished and so highly effective leader of faith and social justice, the Chief Executive Officer of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, the FPWA, an anti-poverty policy and advocacy organization with 170 member agencies and faith partners. This federation fights for the marginalized and ignored and pushes for transformative justice. Let us remember that Dr. King, first and foremost, was a person of faith and fighting poverty, which he associated with racism and bigotry, was at the center of the project that he had undertaken at the time of his death. Ms. Jones Austin has chaired the New York City Racial Justice Commission, which developed ballot proposals to revise the city's charter to dismantle what we now know to be structural racism in government functions and to ensure equity for Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color. all the commission proposals that she advanced were approved by the city's voters. She has served on numerous other influential and powerful boards and commissions, including as vice chair of the National Action Network, the Fordham University Farrick Center for Social Justice, the Center for Law, Brain, and Behavior at Harvard University, and previously as the senior vice president of United Way and chair of the New York City Board of Correction. Ms. Jones Austin appears regularly on radio and television, including just this morning, and she is the author of Consider It Pure Joy, the account of her year-long battle with a sudden, life-threatening illness. She is also the editor of God in the Ghetto, a prophetic word revisited. That was the re-release of her father, William Augustus Jones Jr.'s work deconstructing the system of racism, capitalism, and militarism. Her father worked closely, personally, with Martin Luther King, serving as president of the New York chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and she has continued to carry forth this legacy with her own groundbreaking work. A graduate of the Fordham University School of Law, the New York University Robert F. Wagner Graduate School of Public Service, and Rutgers University, she is the recipient of numerous awards, including 2 honorary doctorates. Before you speak to us today, we are deeply honored to present the 2024 Queens College Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration Award to you. It's a very special recognition. Past recipients have included Congressman Floyd Flake, Dean of the Columbia Journalism School, Jelani Cobb, President and CEO of the Queens Public Library, Dennis Wolcott, former president of the NAACP, Hazel Dukes, and New York's Attorney General, Letitia James. We're so pleased and honored to present a certificate recognizing you with the 2024 Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration Award. And finally, as an additional token of our appreciation, we're presenting you with the limited release, let me emphasize, limited release, not available to the general public, Queens College Varsity Cardigan from the Fall 2022 Kith for Queens College Collection. This piece was designed in collaboration with Russell Athletics and features all over custom patches and embroidered artwork derived from historical material found in our library's special collections. It was modeled by none other than Queens College alumnus Jerry Seinfeld. The college's partnership with Kith, which is renowned in fashion, has included renovation of the sewing lab and stipends for students in our fashion and textiles program who are completing internships. So we'll do another set of photos here. Chelsea, That is a collector's item. Please don't put it on eBay. All right, please join me in welcoming to the podium Jennifer Jones Austin.
Thank you all. I'll tell you, as I'm going to hang the framed certificate in my office at home, but I'm going to have to hide that cardigan because between my son, my husband, my daughter, they may be trying to get at it. I may have to actually frame it too. Before I say anything about the moment and the occasion, I need to take a second to commend Vice President Hershenson for that tremendous video and tribute. I'm sure, like you, I was moved to tears while I was watching it, And I couldn't help but think how wondrously it captures that point in time and makes it ever relevant still today. How I was reminded of the sacrifice of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, and at the same time, the responsibility that we all have as long as we have breath in our bodies to do the work as they did it. We're all here just for a time, for a season. And in that time and season, we have purpose and we have reason. Our purpose is not just about self. As Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner help us to appreciate, it's about service and other, as Dr. King did. So I want to commend Vice President Hershenson for bringing their story to life, and in so doing, providing us with the inspiration to keep going. I want to thank President Wu and all here at Queens College for making this Brooklyn girl feel right at home, just welcoming this Brooklyn girl and her Brooklyn guy to Queens. You know, coming from Brooklyn, it's like you are kind of getting on a plane and going to a faraway land when you come to Queens. And so it's nice to know y'all speak my language, right? And you welcome me with open arms, and I greatly, greatly appreciate that. And I just want to say that to all people who are considering this institution, if they were able to make me feel right at home, to feel a sense of belonging, know that that's what awaits you here at this institution. I have appreciated in just the short while that I've been here that it's a great community, in part because it honors its history and the legacy in that history, but then it celebrates its future and the ability of the students, past, present, and future, to bring about the change that we need. So consider making this your home. I want to thank you, President, for recognizing me with this very distinguished award, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Award. And I want you to appreciate, all of you, that it's both gratifying and it's humbling to receive such a distinguished award. It's gratifying because Queens College recognizing me helps me appreciate that they see me. They see what I'm trying to do, how I'm trying to do my part to change this nation for the better. And it's humbling because there's so much more to be done, so much more for me to do. And you're deeming me worthy of this esteemed honor. What it does is it brings me joy, because I began thinking about Dr. King and so many others who came before me fighting for justice. Your recognition is giving me hope that I'm doing right by them. You know, in the words of another justice warrior, Maya Angelou, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. I also have to say, thank you, that experiencing this moment with Queens College students, like the one who spoke, and also our U.S. Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, who never, ever forgets my dad. It makes this moment all the more special. And I'll share with you all, in case you want to tune me out, that many moons ago, nobody's trying to tune me out, right? But many moons ago, when I graduated from junior high school, and then again from high school, Chuck Schumer was my commencement speaker. And so as I'm, sitting there and appreciating that, I'm thinking, well, maybe I listened to him and I got a little something out of it, and maybe that's what's helped me to stand here today. So for all of you like youngins, maybe if you listen to me, maybe you'll get the opportunity to stand here one day too. I don't know if I'm going to be as prophetic as Dr. King, who was here at Queens College many years ago. Probably not. And I may not be as, stirring as Chuck Schumer, but I do believe I have a few words to say and a few words worth hearing. So thank you for this opportunity to share. 10 years ago, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs, Wages, and Freedom, I was blessed to stand at the Lincoln Memorial, right where Dr. King stood and delivered his monumental, affectionately termed "I Have a Dream" speech. There I stood before a sea of people, just like King did, privileged, honored, and humbled to add my words to the clarion call for justice. And in the 2 minutes that I'd been given, the 2 minutes allotted me, I declared, I am a daughter of the civil rights movement. And as a daughter of the movement, I am the beneficiary of all the good that resulted from the hard work, the sweat and tears and the bloodshed by the leaders and doers of that movement. And as a daughter and beneficiary, I am now the burden bearer of this generation's civil rights movement. You too are the burden bearers. For as Dr. King and other selfless leaders taught us, our work will not be done until all of God's children are free. They didn't march for just some to have jobs. They marched for all to have jobs. They didn't march for just some to have a quality education. They marched for all to have a quality education. They didn't march for just some to be free of the burdens of poverty. They marched for all to be free. And so we come together to pick up the burdens laid down by our leaders who've gone on to their reward and glory, and to commit and recommit ourselves to the war against poverty, the war against gun violence, the war against continuing discrimination on the basis of race, sexual orientation, immigration, and gender, the war against disenfranchisement, and the war against injustice that threatens the present and the future of our children. As a nation, we have demonstrated that we can do just about anything we put our minds to. Ending poverty, gun violence, discrimination, and injustice should be no different. It is our burden. It is our responsibility. And together, we can. In that moment, when I declared I'm a daughter of the civil rights movement, I was speaking both figuratively and literally. Figuratively, a daughter of the movement, a child of the generation that followed kings, a generation poised to reap the benefits sown on our behalf by those who risked it all and those who gave it all, like Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner. Figuratively and literally, my father, the late Reverend Dr. William Augustus Jones Jr., was a faith and civil rights leader. As was shared, he served as the president of the New York chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference when Dr. King was president of the national body. He was president of the economic justice arm of FCLC, Operation Breadbasket. Together, my dad and King and a handful of other Baptist ministers founded the Progressive National Baptist Convention to advance a social justice and civil rights agenda led by Black Baptist preachers. As the daughter of Reverend Dr. William Augustus Jones, I grew up in a home where Dr. King and other movement leaders frequented, they visited, and they stayed. Ralph Abernethy, Dr. King's right-hand man, Jesse Jackson, Andrew Young, aide to Dr. King, Y.T. Walker, chief of staff to Dr. King. They came through the house time and time again. I lived just 2 houses down from Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American woman elected to serve in the United States Congress and the first woman to run for president on the Democratic ticket. My sister and I sat at her dining room table Friday afternoons, eating Hershey bars and drinking champagne cola. That was my upbringing. As Dad's daughter, I witnessed the movement in action from a very young age. And as his and my mother's daughter, I actually attended Dr. King's funeral. I was there 56 years ago, even though I'm only 55. Y'all know how I was there? In utero. I was in my mommy's tummy. Now, some may say, well, were you really there? But as someone who believes in the marinating process, that what a woman is exposed to during her pregnancy can have a profound effect upon the baby she's carrying, let's just say that I believe I got firsthand exposure. Amen. Figuratively and literally, I am a daughter of the movement. So what becomes of a daughter? A child of the movement, a child raised by a theologian and social activist indoctrinated in the Kingian way. A father whose mantra was freedom is the ability to say no to a lie, to veto an untruth. A child raised by a woman who, despite being told that a career in the visual arts the fine arts, was not attainable for a little black girl raised in the South. That little girl went on to become a woman who trailblazed a path to become the first African American curator of a Fortune 100 corporate art collection. She traveled the world buying and commissioning fine arts of work. I grew up in a household where pursuing your passion, standing up for what you believe in, and serving others were values taught and modeled. So when in law school 32 years ago, when I discovered my purpose, my passion, working to protect, serve, and help save vulnerable children, I locked in and I never looked back. And I've been blessed over and over and over with a full and rewarding career. I've worked at the national, state, and local levels on structural laws, policies, and programs affecting children, individuals, and families in crisis. I like to believe that I've been positioned by God to be in the right place at the right time to secure healthy food for the hungry, housing for the homeless, jobs with living wages for the jobless, childcare and full-day universal pre-kindergarten for the youngest, shelter for victims of domestic violence, and more humane treatment for the incarcerated. I've had a full and rewarding career. Thank you. Full, rewarding career with hugely impactful moments. Perhaps it's foolish to rank them, but I dare say that among the most impactful would be, as the president mentioned, chairing the New York City Racial Justice Commission, which with the help of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, likely many of you in this room, resulted in New York City in 2022 becoming the first in the nation to embed racial justice and equity in our charter, our city's constitution. That's a big deal. Because by making racial justice and equity core government functions under the city charter, together we've taken a monumental step forward in dismantling structural racism. With the ending of slavery, it seemed the nation was course correcting. But what wasn't fully appreciated in that moment was that ending slavery wouldn't end racism because it had been structurally embedded in our society from its beginning with the taking of land from Native Americans and with the declaration in the United States Constitution that enslaved persons were not whole human beings, but rather for population counting, 3/5 of a person. These were the beginnings of structural racism. Structural racism broadly refers to the laws and the systems that make legal and enable institutional racism in the form of rules, practices, and customs, which in turn produce or cause to occur inequity, disparity, and discrimination for Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color. After slavery was abolished, and even after the Constitution was amended to remove the 3/5 clause, the institutional and systemic practice and custom of denying Black persons whole person status with the full rights guaranteed under the Constitution was embedded in American culture. From Jim Crow laws beginning post-Civil War in the late 1800s, making it difficult for formerly enslaved persons and their descendants to be paid fairly, to own land, and to be equally educated, as well as to safely navigate racist police, elected officials, and civilians and neighbors. To the GI Bill in the 1940s, which at face provided the opportunity for economic mobility for all U.S. military veterans following World War II, but in reality, advantaged many white veterans because it buttressed discrimination in home ownership and college access. Then and still today, the greatest contributors to income and wealth generation in America. To inequitable criminal justice practices, proceedings, and sentencing for now more than 150 years. Economic and taxation policies that disproportionately disadvantage Black Americans. And more recently, the undoing of hard-fought victories in voting rights and affirmative action. Sadly, these are but a few examples of structural and institutional racism. 48 years ago, being knee-high to a grasshopper, I stood on a podium box at my home church's sanctuary lectern and recited Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech before the congregation. As a little girl, one line in particular, one of the most often quoted lines, resonated with me. I have a dream that one day my children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. This line still resonates with me today, especially in these times. Though spoken decades ago, Dr. King's words embody the ideals of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. When King declared, I have a dream that one day my children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, he wasn't speaking about a particular program or a piece of legislation, but rather a new framework, a new social construct for America, one that put down structural racism and in its stead stood up and embraced a structure of fairness, opportunity, and belonging for everyone. Considered by many a prophet, Dr. King was indeed prophesying a DEI structure where diversity would be celebrated, equity and fairness would be the rule, and no one would be left out or left behind on the basis of race, religion, or other identity. One's skin color would neither advantage nor disadvantage, but it would be celebrated. Dr. King understood that only when America dismantles structural racism as its foundation and embraces a new foundation of structural inclusion with equal access and opportunity in everything, education, housing, jobs, wages, healthcare, and more, only then will it be possible for us to be the America that was envisioned, for us to be a true democracy. Dr. King also understood that he alone could not fix it. Sound familiar? That dismantling this entrenched, racist, and oppressive system that we've all been birthed into and shaped by, molded by, will take all of us. It's been 60 years since Dr. King delivered his I Have a Dream speech, which is considered one of the greatest speeches of all time, for it helped to usher in change in the form of key legislation, embracing civil rights and voting rights and fair housing for all. It's been 60 years since Dr. King prophesied a new America with a structural foundation, inclusive of everyone. And just as he prophesied a new foundation resonant of DEI, he prophesied in another speech, the night before his life was taken, that we've got difficult days ahead. On April 3rd, 1968, the day before he was murdered, Dr. King declared, "Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead." Dr. King was admonishing us that despite the gains that were being made, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965, Fair Housing Act of 1968, hard times, difficult days were surely ahead, and still there is much work to be done. He wasn't wrong. Difficult days are upon us. As the daughter and beneficiary of the civil rights movement, I now am the burden bearer of this generation's civil rights movement. And my friends, you too are burden bearers. We must commit and recommit ourselves to the war against poverty, gun violence, continuing discrimination on the basis of race, sexual orientation, immigration, gender, and disenfranchisement, and against the destruction of democracy as the ideal to which we've aspired as a nation since our very beginning. As a nation, we have demonstrated that we can do just about anything we put our minds to. Ending injustice should be no different. It is our burden, It is our responsibility, and together we can. Thank you very much.
A powerful and fitting speech. Our next speaker is a student, Michaela Noble. Michaela is a psychology major and biology minor, and she is the president of the Black Student Union. We thank you for your continued leadership of this vitally important Queens College registered student organization. Please welcome Michaela Noble to the podium.
Hello, everybody. Please disregard my glasses. I'm recovering from an allergic reaction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michaela Noble. I'm serving as a Student Association Senator, and I proudly hold the position as the President of the Black Student Union. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us today to honor the enduring legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His faith, boldness, and courage continues to resonate and impact us for generations. When reflecting on Dr. King's impactful works, the principle of unity stands out. Every historic speech, march, and declaration he made was not a solo effort, but a collective endeavor amplified by the brothers and sisters who stood with him. In Washington, the image of Dr. King and fellow civil rights activists interlocking arms, marching together, illustrates why unity is the foundation of encouragement and support. This principle is especially crucial for student leaders to grasp. I can recall a period in my student leadership journey when our executive board lacked the unity necessary to thrive. Taking it upon myself, I assumed roles like vice president, secretary, all at once, thinking that it was the best solution. Newsflash, you can't be your own vice president. It doesn't work. However, as time passed, I found myself feeling burnt out. It was a moment of realization. For a team to truly succeed, everyone must share the desire to work towards a common goal. Thankfully, Queens College is a community filled with students, faculty, and staff who believe in the idea that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. The motto, "We learn so that we can serve," is a great representation of that. I found connection with other students who share the vision of unity within the Black community on campus. This experience made me grateful to attend Queens College, where I can encounter people who look like me and understand the importance of education. As Dr. King emphasized, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and crucially. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Regardless of our majors, the way that we engage with our campus community, it prepares us for our future professional careers and the way that we will engage not only in our Black community off campus, but with a community as a whole. In conclusion, let's carry with us the wisdom from Dr. King's 1964 speech in St. Louis. He said, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." In our collective journey, let's remember that unity isn't about one person doing it all, but it's about each of us working towards a shared purpose. Thank you all. Happy Sunday.
Thank you for those sentiments. Once again, coming to the stage will be Dean Simone Yearwood to introduce our musical performers who will close out this afternoon's event.
Thank you. The Queens College Treble Choir, conducted by Dr. Morgan Jolly, and they'll be joining us on stage momentarily, is a select auditioned ensemble with a membership of approximately 30 singers. Comprised of both music and non-music majors, the Treble Choir performs repertoire exclusively for soprano and alto voices. This ensemble is committed to the study of culturally responsive and reflective repertoire and highlights a broad spectrum of music ranging from medieval to the modern. The Treble Choir engages in a variety of performances throughout the academic year and is open by audition only. Recognized as one of the finest collegiate choirs in the region, the QC Treble Choir has appeared in many of Manhattan's prestigious venues, including St. Patrick's Cathedral and Carnegie Hall, and has been invited to perform at the New York State School of Music Association Convention in Rochester, New York, as well as the American Choral Directors Association Conference in Boston. And thank you today, the QC Treble Choir.
Another big round of applause for our singers as they depart the stage. What a wonderful event. Special thanks to all the departments that made this afternoon possible. That includes the MLK Day Planning Committee, Buildings and Grounds, Public Safety, Information Technology, Communications and Marketing, Student Affairs, Academic Affairs, the Rosenthal Library, the Aaron Copeland School of Music, which is home to LeFrac, this wonderful auditorium that we have, and the Kupferberg Center, which partners with us on so many programs. There are light refreshments available in the atrium. Thanks again. We hope to see you next year.